Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Now it's time for us to have a very interactive session. It is actually a panel discussion session, as we have felt that after listening to very inspiring presentations this morning and this afternoon, actually we have a lot in our mind, and we also have quite a lot to ask about. So this afternoon, very glad to have this panel discussion on transformation of food system. I will chair this session together with my co-moderator, Mr. Malte Müller, who actually have chaired successfully the presentation this afternoon. In this session, we have 4 panelists. They are Professor WANG Xiaoxi from Zhejiang University, who have made a presentation this afternoon, and Professor and the former Dean LUAN Jingdong, who come from Anhui Agricultural University. He joined us in this afternoon and share with us many of the local experiences here in Anhui. And my co-corporate moderator will introduce our colleagues from German side. Please.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhu. So we also have on the panel now with us Professor Katharina Riehn. She's a veterinarian and Professor for Food Microbiology and Toxicology at Hamburg University of Applied Science. And at the same time, she also serves as Vice President of the German Agricultural Society, DLG. So welcome. And we also have Dr. Michaela Boehme with us, who is an expert from the DCZ on policy analysis and consulted and did a very good job also in preparing this whole conference. Thank you very much and welcome to your panel.
Yeah, well, welcome to the 4 panelists. After the presentation, we would like to discuss now with our panelists where we stand regarding to the required transformation of food system, what is urgently required, and where we can learn from each other. With that, we would like to pose to you the first question, which we hope that each one of you can share with us your insights, which is, what is your assessment of the status quo of food systems transformation in your country or in your understanding of other parts of the world as well? And which part of the food system do you think is the most problematic and need the most urgent adaptation or transformation in your country or in some other parts of the world? Please. Who will take the question first? I think I will start from here. Xiaoxi, would you please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Well, so regarding the status quo, I think, or at least from my point of view, the food system in China has been quite successful in terms of lifting out millions of people out of poverty and hunger. But in the same time, it creates environmental, health, and also economic problems. Should I also address your second question, or should I pass to other panelists first?
Your answer is very succinct. You could add a little bit on if you have some ideas on the first 2, I should say, because these 2 are actually related. Okay, so you can add a little bit more of the second.
Sure. And with regard to the level, or at least the problematic part, I would like to make an analog. I pretty much like an analog. So in energy system or in German context, we say that at given the energy transition. So for the energy well, let me build some words first. So in the energy system, you can simply place the greenhouse gas emission pricing or the carbon price. But the food system, the problem in food system is more weak to problem. So it's, as I showed in my presentation, the problems are interconnected. So I see the production system needs to be transformed. The consumption side should be also changed. And also the whole food value chain should be considered. So basically, even before the production, when the inputs goes to farm gate for production. So I guess we need to open our mind and to embrace a food system perspective. So to consider all the sectors and the interconnections between them. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. When I heard the question, I thought a little bit, okay, what is maybe a good answer to that? And I decided to start with something positive from a German perspective. And I think we also heard it before that Germany had made great progress in promoting, for example, sustainable agriculture, sustainable food production, and also reducing food waste. And the country, you saw it before, is actively working to promote plant-based diets, reduce meat consumption, and so on. However, we are still not at the end at our goals, and there is much to be done. And I think the most important thing is to have like this holistic approach we talked about, that because when you want to make a transition, it is also always something that has to change in the society. And I always feel that in many, many places, the technical requirements are already met. We have the technology, we have the techniques and everything. But what is missing, in my opinion, is that we take the society with us in this holistic approach. And these days it is often so that we as experts, you and me, and we all sitting here, and our communication to the society, to say it like that, is not really efficient. And we often leave it over to third parties to make this communication and fill this gap. And I think there we have to improve ourselves a little bit, because otherwise this transition cannot be successful. Thank you.
LUAN 教授，请。
Okay. I speak Chinese.
I will speak in Chinese. And as the panelists said, that for China, the transformation of agri-food systems, I really agree with Professor Wang. We have made a lot of progress. But the progress is more about quantity. Now we can produce and supply enough food. In the past, we did not have enough supply of agri-products. Now we can provide enough supply of agri-products. This progress is made by our agricultural policies that encourages agricultural productivity. And this progress should also be attributed to technological progress. So we can feed the 1.4 billion population and can secure enough supply of agri-products. And so currently, the most important transformation task we are facing is to transform towards a more healthy and nutritious food. We need to produce high-end agri-products that can meet the higher demands of our consumers. And the production of these products should be friendly to the environment and should have less carbon emissions. So I think now China is at a new stage of agri-food transformation. We have new targets and new objectives, and also need new actions and new approaches. And that's my opinion.
Not so much I can add to these perspectives. And I cannot listen to this at the same time. So I think all the three panelists said things that I can basically echo, and I'm neither speaking only for Germany nor for China, but I think I'll report a little bit from my perspective at the Sino-German Agricultural Center, sitting in between these two countries and understanding the types of exchanges we are having. So at first I would say, Mr. LUAN, Professor LUAN, I do agree when we talk about food system challenges, transformations. In Germany, we kind of forget the achievements that we had in the past. And I think it is an achievement that a country like China, which faced famine in the 1960s, right? That this country is now able to feed everyone, and not just feed everyone on a simple diet, but feed everyone well. And of course, the same is true for Germany, which hasn't faced a major famine for a longer time. So we kind of tend to forget that not so long ago, in some countries of the world, still, real hunger, not having anything to eat is still a big problem. So when we're talking about transformation, we must not forget this, but it's also clear, like all the panelists said, that we can't really go on the way we're doing it, because that just means that in a few years' time, yields will go down and we cannot follow on this path. So we are seeing quite a few areas where there is a lot of push for change from both Germany and China. That involves biodiversity. We're just starting a project on agricultural biodiversity now at the DCZ, where we will talk about these issues. But that also involves technical initiatives, digitalization, food loss and waste. And I'm repeating what the panelists said, the entire value chain, all groups of actors going together. So perhaps you can't ask the question this way: is there any single area that needs change now? It is this holistic, systems-based approach.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the panelists for the nice answers. I think there are a lot of commonalities from your responses in regards to what is actually transformation and the definition. And I found the laying out of Professor LUAN very nice. You said that kind of there was in China a first phase of transformation for, in the end, feeding people and food security and food sovereignty, where we are right now. And now you're getting into a second stage of transformation. And you also confirmed, Professor Riehn and also WANG Xiaoxi, that kind of dietary patterns and nutrition are quite important. And then maybe a question from the German example to Professor Riehn. So if you see that it's often argued that a dietary change is required not only for the personal health, but also for our environmental health, which leverage do consumers have? What do you see? What maybe you can also explain a little bit from your personal experience from Germany. What are the trends actually?
I think the drivers have changed a little bit to change the dietary patterns. In the older days, it was mostly about animal welfare, but today it is also about climate action and saving the climate. And from my personal experience, I can say, when I look at my students who are in the beginning of their 20s, for many of them, it is absolutely normal not to eat animal products, because they grew up like that. And other than I, who grew up in a different time, they don't miss anything. And I think this will be a part of the future, and also a driver of new food systems and this transition in food and agriculture, because these young people will be the ones who decide over food systems in the upcoming time. And I think there is a big wish from that generation to have a more sustainable, more climate friendly way to eat. Not forcing everyone to be vegan, but just reduce the consumption of animal protein. And I think, yeah, this is something that is always amazing to me, because really for them, there is no point in saying, oh yes, I missed this or I missed that. For them, it's just the really new normal, you can say.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. So, Professor Wang, you said in your talk also previously that, or you made also quite strong claim for plant-based diets, reducing health issues, and also improving the or reducing the negative externalities on the environment that could have it. And there's also, you said there's also a nutrition strategy currently elaborated within the government. So quite interesting. What you as a modeler, what do you expect? Like which pathways do we see for the coming time? Is there also a dietary change happen in China? Do you see also personally see that there is also such a trend there, as Professor Riehn has just told us from Germany?
So let me get the question correct. So you want to know my personal experience, how the dietary trend is?
No, both.
Both. So personal experience and also from
the trends that you see in your models
trends.
when you look about what are dietary changes in China taking place, because you were talking about particularly also talking about elderly people.
Okay. Let me probably put in this way. So there's an update of the Chinese dietary guideline last year. So after 6 years, and the previous version was in 2016. And what I found interesting, I'm not sure whether I answer in the correct direction. If not, please correct me. So what I see is that, well, from the international cooperation point of view, the CDG is incorporating lots of ingredients from the e-Lancet dietary guideline. Although the e-Lancet dietary guideline was published in 2019 by the Aid Commission, so the current director of PIK, Johan Hoekström, and also Willy Water, one of our collaborators. So the e-Lancet dietary guideline was highly debated in China and criticized because it doesn't take into account country-specific characteristics. So this leads to my second point, is that if we roll back to the old Chinese culture, or what we say the 八大菜系, I don't know how to translate it in Chinese, in English, but it means that well, China is so large and there's a big heterogeneity inside the country. So for example, I'm from Zhejiang province, and the Zhejiang province has its own cuisine. And if we move to north to Shandong, it has Lu Cai, another cuisine. So in general, it has a very strong culture about the dietary diversity, and has a strong component of vegetarian and fruits ingredients. So that's what we say the Oriental diets, additional to the flexitarian or the Mediterranean or the e-Lancet diets. So this, I don't know whether I answer your question correctly.
It's not about correct, but I think it got in the right.
Okay, in the right direction, right?
Sure.
And well, back to my personal experience, I do see that the individual diets is fastly converging to Western diets due to urbanization, due to globalization. So I guess it's time to change it. And in order to change it, I guess it's important to raise public awareness. So that's very important that the CDC and the central government updates the Chinese dietary guideline, and also incorporate the new research finding from the international research community. And I guess people are aware of this. And for example, myself, probably I'm biased, but at least once a week, I will have lunch, at least one time lunch with vegetarian. Yeah, but for my kids, that's a different story.
Yeah, perhaps I can just add a little bit from what I see from my perspective. There is definitely diets are transforming really, really fast. I think even in the way that people eat, all this ordering out or ordering in, I don't know, you're at home, why my? They bring the food to you. This has, I think, completely, it's not per se about what you're eating, but the way that you're ordering and consuming the food is also changing your dietary habits overall. And people eat very differently, very much more Western. This Waimai culture creates a lot of other, perhaps not so healthy byproducts, like lots of waste, in my opinion. Perhaps also in terms of nutrition, it's not always the best, but my point is it's changing, and it's changing really fast. And the debates in China about it are also changing really fast. But when I'm comparing the Chinese world that I'm experiencing as a foreigner and the debates that I know of in Germany, then I think the meat-less or less animal protein discourse is weaker in China. Strangely though, and that's interesting, I think in the government policies, this is actually being highlighted. I don't have the 5-year plan in my mind right now, even though I should know, but there was one specific section in one of the 5-year plans recently released talking about future foods. And there was a special section on cultivated meat, and that has already attracted a lot of investment from the investment community. But I think the uptake and in the sort of discourse and in what people are thinking and talking about, this is still not quite in sync.
Yeah, I find the answers are very, very exhilarating. In fact, we know that different countries are at different stages. And when diet is concerned, it seems to me that we are moving toward convergence because traditionally the Chinese are more protein-based. And then with the income rise, it is becoming more and more westernized, and animal protein is regarded as more high value. And it seems that the Western countries, especially as you have mentioned, like Germany, I think that more plant-based proteins would be more healthy. So I think there is definitely a need for cross-learning and cross-sharing, and a good balance of that, I think, would be more analyzed and shared by especially the young people. As we know that animal protein would be a must for children and for the infants within 100 days or etc. And too much animals for adults would be not so healthy for their well-being. So I think there's a lot to talk about. But the one thing I think there's a kind of consensus among all consumers in different countries, that is the organic food. Most people would like the organic food and the grain food, etc. I think that's the same thing in Germany and in China. And in this morning, we find that figures are different in terms of the percentage, but China is catching up. And I'm very glad to know that Anhui province here, the local, the region actually have done quite a lot in moving toward that direction. And the government, as well as the enterprises and the consumers, are actually attaching great importance to that. And we are fortunate to have a local professor with us. So we would like to ask him to share some of their endeavor, and most importantly, what they think that is the challenge facing them and what they need to do in the future. So 阮教授，刚才我们讲到了，虽然各个国家可能
So Professor Luan, we've just mentioned that though different countries are at different stages of the transformation, but almost all consumers prefer green food and organic food. And in this regard, Anhui province is also a large provider of organic food. It's making great efforts to develop the industry and is also taking a lot of actions. So could you please share with us what efforts have been made by Anhui province to promote organic agriculture and green food? In this process, what are the major difficulties, and in which area do we need to make more efforts?
朱老师提出这个问题，我觉得非常好，包括我们这次中的。
I think holding the Sino-German Agricultural Week in Anhui is a good choice because Anhui is a major agricultural producer. Its agricultural output stands at the fourth in the country. Meanwhile, Anhui Province is also an important part of the development strategy of the Zhejiang Delta. It also plays a key part in implementing the Belt and Road Initiative. It shows the geographical and resource advantages of the province. In 2021, Anhui Province also proposed that it would support organic agriculture. In this regard, a lot of progress has been made in the past 2 years. As said by the Vice Governor of Anhui, 10 key organic sectors have been identified, including rice, pork, poultry, seafood, Chinese medicine, and tea, etc. And people are striving to increase the output of these sectors to 100 billion Jing. So Anhui is an important supplier of green food, especially in Bengbu and in northern Anhui. Where the land is primarily plains and very suitable for cultivation. So the province is also aiming to provide more organic food to the Long River Delta region. About 48% of grain and meat, 32% of fruits, and 30% of the fruit of the Long River Delta region comes from Anhui province. So ever since 2020, the 10 key sectors in Anhui has reached 1.2 trillion RMB. And Chinese medicine, soybean, and as well as the high quality glutinous rice in Anhui have been listed as nationally advanced sector. More than 4,000 products have been identified at a nation level. So as you can see, the progress is remarkable. And 120 products have got the geographical indications in China. But in this process, on whole process development, especially at the upper end of the industrial chain, the supply of raw materials to produce high quality green food is still insufficient. And also in the middle part, more emphasis should be put to animal and crop farming, while at the very end, the logistics and retail should be attached more importance. So at present, the most pressing task is that the development of the industrial chain is still imbalanced. For example, in production, the level of standardization is still very low. So there are not enough technological standards to ensure the quality of the products for further processing. So it's imperative for the suppliers to be able to provide more high quality materials for processing. So in this regard, I think more technological breakthroughs will be required. But as Professor Ke has said, the transformation requires both institutional innovation and technological innovation. So we also need to emphasize the innovation institutions and the organization of farmers. Only in this way can we build a better premise for the food transformation. Thank you.
LUAN, yeah, so once again emphasize the importance of the holistic way of getting together and to address the challenging the issues. And this holistic effort, I think, should include not only the good practices and explorations in the real field, it also requires a good research for policy design in the very beginning. So my next question actually is toward Professor Wang. As we have already seen from your previous presentation that you have done quite a lot of academic research, including a lot of modeling. And you have also modeled the social inclusiveness of food system transformation as well. So in terms of the inclusiveness, what does that mean exactly in the Chinese context? And which systems do you think are inclusive?
Well, regarding the inclusive or inclusivity in the Chinese context, I think it's about prosperity. So everyone has a decent livelihoods. And I think agriculture sector is essential for smallholders. So even the smallholders, they move to the urban areas and work as migrant workers. When they have some external shocks, they can at least come back to their village and cultivate on their land. So I would say, yeah, agriculture sector works as a safety net for smallholders. And I would like to also elaborate a little bit on how the food system can be more inclusive. So let me give one example about regenerative agriculture or the horticulture imposed with strict ecological requirements. So this could generate a positive environmental externality, but this positive environmental externality cannot be valued because there's an absence of the market. But with the recent development of the CCER, which is called Chinese Certified Emission Reduction Program, so this makes the individual entity can be profitable or at least benefit from this system. So calculating the greenhouse gas emissions from the horticulture and then provides negative emissions. So this can be transferred as the money transfer back to the smallholders. So that's at least what I have in mind as one example of the inclusive food system.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very interesting point because it shows us what incentives are there to really bring farmers and actors on the board to really be part of this transformation. And there, I would also maybe once again know from Professor Riehn, we have you here not only as an expert, as a professor on nutrition, but also as the vice president of DLG, representing the industry and also the farmers in Germany. So what instruments are necessary? How can these actors be convinced to participate in the whole transformation agenda? Because as you all know, we talk about politics, it's not easy to change the wheel, to steer the wheel, to push some buttons, and then the transformation will push off. So what is important to really convince the actual actors to be part of it?
I think the most important thing is, first of all, to listen to them. I think this is always, or this is in some perspectives really an issue, because in many cases, farmers as well as food producers feel that they are not heard. And I think our farmers, but also food producers, they are really able and willing to adapt. I think there is no doubt about that, and they have shown it earlier that they are really, really able to adapt. They want to be listened to, and the second thing is that they need security and safety for the future. This change and all the transformation we are talking about is connected to big investments also. And all the stakeholders in this transition need to have security about their futures. And maybe they also need to get guidance, alternatives, and as I said in the beginning, they need to be listened to, because there is many issues on that way, and I'm sure lots of these issues can be solved, but they should be solved in a way where everyone feels heard in the end of the day. And I think this is really, really something important, to listen to the actual stakeholders and don't talk over their heads, as we say, because sometimes it really feels like that everyone has a plan, everyone has good ideas, and it is a little bit over the head of the actual actors. And I think this is something that should be really done. And on the other side, as I said before, I think there is many technical solutions. We have answers on many questions from the technological side already. And what we as a scientific organization, as DLG, can do is just to transfer knowledge. We can provide knowledge, we can transfer knowledge to others, and we can connect stakeholders in knowledge, to say it like that. And I think this is also something we really, really need to connect people and bring them together on a scientific base also.
Thank you very much. I just want to come back to one further point that we had before when we were talking about green agriculture. So Vice Minister Ma, in his opening speech, he also emphasized that organic agriculture could be an important aspect of Sino-German collaboration. And I wanted to ask Michaela, because you're always having both sides, you're looking deep into China, and you also know the European and German case. So maybe can you explain us a little bit whether there's a common understanding of the terms of green agriculture and also organic farming as a starter point?
Okay, thanks for this question. I would love to get into the other question very briefly, and then I'll come back. I'm actually not a very big expert in organic agriculture. So talking about how do we get this transformation happening, I think one important point to keep in mind is, yes, we have very different actors that we need to involve in the conversation, but I think these actors have to a certain extent different goals. So I like to think of this transformation process as a kind of contested and negotiated process. So there was recently a publication that came out of the Institute for International Policy Research, IFPRI, International Food Policy Research Institute, called The Political Economy of Food Systems Transformation, which is an edited volume that looks at these different groups, what they want, and the kinds of political opportunities that you have to get them into conversation. So of course you need to talk to them, but the discussions won't be very easy. You really have to kind of understand if you increase the costs for farmers, there will be some farmers that are losing. What can you do to help them? If you put all the costs that come through more environmentally friendly practices on the consumers, you will have some consumers losing out. You might have, so how do you kind of balance everything? I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think we should fool ourselves and think it's just about we all get together and then we have the solution already. So it's really a contested process, I would think. And so we have to keep on having this debate. And
maybe I saw Katharina Riehn, she's already raising the microphone. She wants to answer.
Yeah, absolutely, because I would like to highlight that in the end of the day, there will always be losers and winners. It is like that. And it is really a contested thing. And you're absolutely right. Not everyone can be 100% happy in the end of the day. But as you also mentioned, I think to listen to the needs and what is needed to make this transformation. This is the most important thing from others say. It is maybe not the question if we can 100% respond to every need that is formulated, but first of all, these needs should be heard and taken also seriously.
Well, I think after listening to this, I think I benefit quite a lot. And I also have one question that I would like every one of you to give me a little bit of a response is, how can China and Germany to learn from each other and can work together toward the food transformation? And I probably will, first of all, forward this question to Professor Riehn, because you are in the field of food safety, and which I have a chat with you that I think is a very important research area. Because in China, we attach a great importance to food security, which is more about availability, about quantity. But nowadays, with the food transformation and with the income rising, more and more people attach great importance to food safety. So I think Germany is way ahead in that regard. So what do you think are some of the good experiences that we can learn from Germany? And what are the also pitfalls or some of the lessons that we should learn from the German experiences that China should avoid and not to fall into? Yeah.
In terms of food safety, I think we have to be aware that every transformation leads also to changes in food safety. As an example, if we want to have more outdoor husbandry, we have our animals in closer contact with the environment. And this can lead to a re-emerge, you can say, of certain parasites, for example, but also bacteria and viruses can be spread sometimes easier through that. So we have to keep that in mind. And I think many systems of like host and pathogen interaction are still not 100% understood. And if we change our systems and husbandry practices, for example, but also like regarding agriculture in general, if we use less pesticides, we have to be aware that some for example, fungi and so on can grow, and this can be a threat to the human health. And it sounds always very, very easy. We just make a finger snap and everything is organic and everything will be good. But we have to be aware that there are also changes for the food safety on this behalf. For example, if you think about mycotoxins, this is also a field, but also other biological or physical threats, for example. Yeah, and I take from this that like venues like this are so super important to have, because like food safety, same as food security, is really a global issue. And the COVID pandemic has shown us so well how easy diseases can spread all over the world. People with foodstuff, and we have so complex value chains these days that we have to think that together before when we want to do all these changes. And I think it is so important to have this exchange with experts here and to see the different perspectives from both countries.
Yeah, thank you very much for such rich experiences and very good lessons for us to learn. And probably Professor Wang, because you've had the rich experiences of living, of course, in China, and also have quite some years in Germany. So you are in a good position to answer that question, to find out what are the good experiences or lessons from different countries and what can be learned from the other countries, something like that. I think you must have something to share with us.
Well, that's a tough question. I have to recall my memory in Germany. So, but let me take perhaps one example on the European level. So the Common Agricultural Policy. So I learned this policy in my master program and also work a little bit in a PhD program. So I guess we can definitely learn the lessons and the successful experience with regard to the agricultural policy reform. So there were, I think, 2 or 3 rounds common agricultural policy reform in Europe, in the European Parliament. And it gradually focus on the rural development and the decoupling of the agricultural subsidy and the production, and focus on the environmental sustainability. And actually, China is also on this track. So we have already phased out the fertilizer subsidy, although the fertilizer subsidy was given to the fertilizer manufacturer instead of the farmers back to 2010. But we see this policy subsidy, this subsidy has already begun. And we have also talked about repurposing the subsidy or greening the subsidy in China. So to divert the subsidy to more green agriculture or green technology, or even to the research and development in the agriculture sector, which was actually discussed in the second round reform of the CAP in Europe. So I guess we can learn lots of things, I guess also mutually, because we see other phenomena maybe happening in China, but not yet in Europe. So I guess it's a mutual learning process. Thank you.
Michaela Boehme, do you also want to add on the previous question from Professor Zhu on what can we actually learn? Maybe once again regarding this particularly important topic of organic agriculture, which, as you already pointed out, it is quite important because it is very much about transfer of technical knowledge when we want to reduce the natural resistance against fungi, for example. Farmers need a very good knowledge base by substituting pesticides. So just maybe once again, this general question, do you think that there's a common understanding when we talk about green agriculture and organic agriculture between Germany and China?
I think there is not even a common understanding in either of the countries what green agriculture is. I think so I think first of all, we have to distinguish in the discourse. In Germany, I think you would hear more about organic agriculture, and there's a clear system attached to it. How do products become organic? What's the process behind it? What kind of guarantees do you have? And so is it in China. The systems are a little bit different. For example, in China, you are certified on a product basis and not for a production unit or a farm. And we have a colleague at the Sino-German Agricultural Center, Eva Sternfeld. She knows a lot about organic agriculture in China. So quiz her and not me on the specifics, but there is a system in place for organic agriculture that with clear rules. But I think It all changes when people talk about green agriculture, or there is another term in Chinese, ecological agriculture. So I think these are very hazy terms, but I think it's important to sort of realize in the minds of people, at least in China, green agriculture, ecological agriculture is sometimes considered even better or somehow more what people aspire to more than organic agriculture. And that might have to do with the fact that the level of trust in the certification systems or in, people sticking to their certification is lower. I don't have the same feeling in Germany, though perhaps we also sometimes have trust issues there. So the point is, I think for me, when people in China aspire to green products or ecological agriculture, the trust that they are really after does not necessarily have to come from certified organic agriculture, but it comes really from building these personal networks of trust. So especially connecting consumers and producers through community-supported agriculture. This is perhaps also supported through new technologies like live streaming. So you know the farm, you've been there, you see how they're live streaming, what they are doing, you know their products. So I don't know, organic agriculture in China is growing, it's important, but perhaps it's not the only answer or the main answer. I think building these other networks of trust, and then it's just green agriculture, whatever you want to call it. These products are not certified, but this is really where we see a lot of interesting initiatives in China.
阮教授，这个问题也希望请教您一下，因为这次
Professor Luan, we also have the question for you because this year we hold the Sino-German Agricultural Week in Anhui province, and the event is to promote mutual learning and communication. So I would like to ask, during this event, what do you want to learn from Germans' experiences about German concepts, their knowledge, their insights? And what kind of such knowledge do you hope China can learn from Germany to promote the transformation of our agri-system? And what do you think, what kind of Chinese practices can leave a good impression to the Germany guests? And I think I really learned a lot from today's agenda and exchange. We knew the experience and challenges in agri-food transformation, and I have benefited a lot from the speeches due to technological progress. We've seen that the transformation of agri-food system is underpinned by technology, and we have higher productivity, higher quality, and higher possibility towards an ecological transformation. Without technology, all these changes are not possible. And second, I think the biggest challenge we are facing, in which not only Anhui province has, it may be a common challenge faced by the whole China. That is the use of pesticides and fertilizers. The farmers, they are smallholder farmers. So without the use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, farmers worry that the yield may decrease, thus their income will decrease. So the farmers are not that proactively use the ecological mode of production. And as the German panelists said, we need to negotiate and contact with the farmers and related organizations so that we can have better implementation of these policies and plans. And through your presentations, I learned that the transformation of agri-food systems requires forces from three aspects. First is effective market. We need the market to distribute and allocate the resources and engage different actors into the transformation process. And second, we need an effective government. The government can provide guidance, support, and guarantees. The third is qualified institutions and organizations. The transformation towards green and ecological development have to involve agencies like certification institutions and associations related with consumers. So only when the three pillars play their role can we achieve better transformation of agri-food systems. And I think now in China, we have a problem that is the government is too strong and they have done too much. And for the market perspective, we need the market to play a stronger role to better allocate the resources. And we also need more competent institutions and organizations like the third-party institutions. We need to cultivate more institutions that can serve the agri-food system transformation. We need to have more organizations that can serve the government, serve the farmers, and serve the businesses. And I think that's what I've learned from Germany.
那么如果说有什么经验的话，我觉得
So in terms of learning others' experiences during the transformation, we need to give a better play to different institutions and agencies other than the government. And identify some pilot industries and sectors to adopt such measures. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems that our local professors think more about how to learn from the advanced experiences, especially to let market play active role instead of having the government doing what is beyond their boundaries. I think there's much to learn from the institutional arrangement in Germany as well. So quite a lot of things for, as we say, cross-learning, but it seems that because we are kind of catching up, so definitely we need to learn more from those who are already advanced. Yeah, I'm not sure whether our co-moderator, the Dr. Malte, you have additional questions, or we can collect some questions from our audience.
I think we should involve the audience at that time,
Okay.
right? Yes, they were waiting for so long.
Sure. It's very nice, and thank you for your patience and letting the two of us ask questions of our interest. And we believe that you must have your curiosities or your questions that you would like the panel expert to provide their insights. We would like to invite you to give you comments or questions. Please go ahead. Is there a microphone that could be forwarded to our?
I think it's coming already.
Yeah. Thank you. And for our it is appreciated that you could identify yourself and ask the questions. Yeah.
Okay, since I'm already close to the microphone, I will just take that first and you the next. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I really appreciated this discussion, and I particularly like Michaela actually had this point like we have the organic farming. It's like certified. Maybe China in this case because we still need to produce a lot, but the current most pressing issue is not like reducing the fertilizer pesticide to zero rather than maybe half them, because Germany actually is a heavy user of fertilizers in Europe. But the reality in China is China's fertilizer usage is about 3 times of Germany. So that's way too high. So maybe there's some, before we go to zero or that low, maybe we can reduce that. So what kind of like lessons or measurement, including the policies in Germany, can maybe transfer that to China to reduce that to half?
Yeah, who would like to take that question?
I think it might be rightly addressed at Katharina
It
Riehn,
has
but
something
then
to do with food safety,
Yeah.
I think, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one way to face that is also to promote conventional agriculture, to move more towards ecological standards, because this is something we can actually see. The 30% of ecological farming are really, really a good goal, but there is still 70% of conventional farms. And what we can see is these farms are going more and more and more towards ecological standards. That does not mean that they are eco-certified or something like that, but the standards are shifting. And I think that there is a big potential in these 70% of farmers here in China, as well as in Germany also, to make really an impact. Because if I have the majority of farms still maybe working conventional and using fertilizers and pesticides, but reduce it according to the standards of eco-certified farms and adapt methods from the ecological agriculture, I think this has really, really a big impact. And what I can feel is that the government should promote this, I would say, regenerative agriculture more, maybe as they do it now.
Then we take the next question. Or Professor Wang, maybe you wanted to add something on this, because we are talking of fertilizers and you were presenting also.
Well,
this in China.
and probably from the Chinese context, I think the recoupling of livestock production and the crop production can be one way. So when we talk about fertilizer, usually we mean about the synthetic fertilizer. So actually we can combine the organic fertilizer or the manure, so recycle the manure to the cropland. It can also be replaced. It can partly replace synthetic fertilizer. And what we see the pattern in China is that crop production is decoupled from livestock production. And I guess that's probably one thing I would like to ask opinion from our German colleagues. So how is livestock production connected to crop production, and how is the manure recycled to cropland in Germany or in Europe?
I think at the moment we are working towards to connect the crop production to the husbandry practices, so that there is a strong connection of how much cropland I have and how many animals I can have to that. This is something that is really, really a part of the transition at the moment. And I think this is also a part, at least, of the solution to reduce the number of animals, like related to the cropland I have. Yeah.
And what are the measures from the policy level? Any policy instruments or measures that provide these incentives to farmers to reconnect the crop production and the livestock production?
Unfortunately, no one from the federal ministry is here right now to explain it in detail, but there is actually plans to connect that together and reduce actually the number of animals when there is not sufficient cropland. Of course, there's always also ways to how should I say, to swap that a little bit, but basically it is planned to reduce the number of animals according to the cropland that is available.
Yeah, I think you raise a very important, a very good question. And the discussion can go on until or till lunchtime or even cover the lunch. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we can discuss regarding the reduction of the fertilizer, especially in China, when food safety and food security are both very important objective of the government. So it is very important. So we cannot say that your question is 100% be answered by the limited time here, but we definitely will still continue to discuss that later on. So let's, if there is I think there's another question from another of our participants.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for interesting conversation. My name is George. I represent here German company working in alternative proteins, and I can reflect on what is going on in Europe and in Germany. And alternative proteins is the part of the food system transformation, and it's important part. And earlier, Professor Wang was mentioning that the shift towards plant-based diet probably the important measure as well. And in this regard, my question is, what is the status quo of alternative proteins in China? And my question is probably to Chinese colleagues. And what do you see from both perspective of policymakers in terms of support of alternative proteins and from the perspective of consumers? I mean, the readiness of average Chinese consumer to maybe try out plant-based meat, mycelium or cultivated products, etc. Thank you.
So the question, thanks first of all. So the question is about the public opinions or attitude towards the alternative protein. Well, I guess it's to be honest, I have very limited knowledge about this. So just from my personal experience, I guess the attitude is not pro for the alternative protein, but I guess we have to first define the alternative protein. So conventionally, the soybeans and the legumes also provide the alternative protein. So the plant-based diet protein, I guess it's widely acceptable. We drink soy milk and we eat tofu. So yeah, from this aspect, I guess the reluctance is low. But if you talk about the microprotein or those highly processed protein, I guess people are concerned. Also, scientists raise some evidence or provide evidence regarding this. So there might be some health risk, but I guess researchers need to do more work. And of course, for myself, I also have to dig into the literature to look at that. Thank you.
Perhaps as Professor Wang mentioned, I mean, there are all these alternative proteins in the Chinese diet. And just perhaps as an anecdote, I was at the GFFA and Green Week in Germany last year, and there I think the ministry was offered insects as food, right? And for the Germans, that's an alternative protein, right? For the Germans, that's wow. Oh God, you have to position yourself to that. Do you like a strange experience? Well, if you look at China, a diverse country, of course, but insects are in some places part of the food, not everywhere, but it's so in a way, China has a lot of alternative proteins, and of course, soybean and so on. And so I think the question is perhaps to sort of to reappreciate some of the older traditions that exist. That's at least my observation as a foreigner living in China.
Yeah, I would like to add, although my role is a moderator, but you have actually mentioned the greater food approach in China, and to regard many of the unconditional resources as food actually is not too difficult in China, because we have very diverse food menu, I should say, and we eat almost everything from plant to animal, including many of the parts of the animal that Westerners usually feel disgust about. So, so I think in the future, when there is alternative meat or alternative protein, I think the Chinese people, if necessary, they would regard this as good sources of food, as long as it could be cooked deliciously to compete with the 8 cuisines that Professor Wang has mentioned. Chinese people would be willing to accept that kind of concept as well as the food itself. Yeah, if I can add. Okay, I'd better hand it to you for you to give the chance to our participants to have more of their insights.
Yes. Maybe is there one more question in the audience? Yeah. Oh wow! Now there are many hands. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. My name is Christina Simonetti Techa.
大家好，我也是来自 GFA 的。
I have 2 questions. We've heard a lot about modernizing systems for distribution of agricultural products today, and the farm to fork concepts, etc. But I think because we've heard so much today, so many interesting things, if you could prioritize like one area, for example, of this modernization process, what would it be? Like, this is the first question. And the second one is, if you would be to design a new collaboration project between China and Germany today, and you would have to put it on paper, like, what would be, the topic of it? Like, if you could choose one.
Is that question to a specific panelist?
No, to the whole panel. Actually, if we have time, otherwise.
Who wants to answer first?
Me again. Okay. Okay, so what you are asking is about which part of the agriculture modernization should be emphasized or prioritized. Yeah, that's a tough question. I guess from my research experience, what we see is that there are trade-offs and synergies. So what we need to do before making the conclusion or decision which part to go is really to improve their understanding. And then, well, as a scientist, as a researcher, what I can do is providing science-based evidence and inform the policymakers, and also inform the stakeholders. And the models can be a participatory decision tool. So I guess then there will be a negotiation process to reach the consensus. Yeah, sounds a little bit diplomatic, but I guess that's how I view it. Yeah, really, sincerely.
Yeah, maybe from my, I had now a minute to think about a good answer. And from my perspective, as we heard it also before, the answer is always food. And for me, the most important thing would be to change dietary patterns, because agriculture will always answer to demands in final customers. And if we can make a transition in dietary patterns and reduce, for example, the consumption of meat, the consumption of other like animal products, I think this would be a really, really, really good thing. And I talked about that earlier. My vision for sustainable diet is always that the plant-based product is the standard and the animal-based product is the high class or like a luxury product. And I think if we would reach that, many of our problems would be solved in a really, really easy way. If foods of animal origin would be appreciated as what they are, a really high quality source of nutrition and protein, because nowadays it is often like this that we eat it without noticing. And I think if we could change that thinking in many people's heads, lots of our problems from the other side would be easily solved.
From my perspective, I would like to talk more from the Chinese context. I think agricultural modernization for China is to ensure food security. We need to have enough food, enough to feed the 1.4 billion people. And the second is to ensure the quality, to have nutritious and healthy food. So first, we need to produce enough food on our limited land, and the food produced should to meet the minimum safety requirements. And second, we should pay attention to the impact to environment. We should not sacrifice our environment and natural resources. So the second is to produce enough food and also protect the environment. Third, yes, we should pay attention to rural development, the living environment of rural residents, the infrastructure in rural areas. We should make improvements gradually in these related fields. Fourth, we should pay attention to the rural population. The farmers should also develop. Only when the people have good development can we have sustainable support for our agricultural modernization. And such improvement including fitness, education, and their health. Without good people, agricultural modernization will face serious problems. And these are the four things I regard as important from China's experience. And I hope we can have German experts to talk more about German's experience.
We have maybe the chance of one last question from the audience there in the back. Yeah. Is there a microphone still available? Thank you.
There was one more question.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Kevin. Nice to meet you. For convenience, I just introducing my questions to Chinese. 各位老师好，我是来自安徽蚌埠的一个农业创业者。
I'm an agricultural entrepreneur from Bengbu City, Anhui Province, and welcome to Bengbu City. I would like to know more about German automobile companies that they have already integrated the AI technologies and other advanced technologies. So my question is, will Germany combine the agricultural sector with some very advanced technologies like sensors, automation equipment, and AI system.
Professor Riehn, please.
Thank you. I think in many companies, as well as an agriculture business, also as in food business, AI is already like implemented. Maybe I can give you an example. It is more from a food-related area, but to reduce food waste, for example, in bakery shops, AI is used to plan the amount of, I don't know, buns or breads that is baked. So the people in the bakery shop, they know exactly how much buns they should bake on a, I don't know, it is Tuesday today in November. In some states of Germany, there is a public holiday today. The weather is not so good, so people will stay more at home. So they know with this AI how to plan their supply in a better way. And there is many examples, also like the bottle-to-bottle systems regarding glass bottles. These systems, how many bottles will come back from the customers and how many needs to be produced too. All this is already done with AI. And there is so many more applications, and many companies, even small companies, adapt these technologies, and really profit from it.
Thank you very much for that answer. I might also add that we have an agribusiness conference here on Friday as part also of the Sino-German Agricultural Week, where we have particular examples from companies also presenting how they use these technologies, and also AI. You might also join there. So I think there's still time for a very last question. I saw last hand, right?
Hello, my name is Ahmed Can, and I also work at DCZ Michaela. And thank you, Mr. Müller and Professor Zhu, for excellent moderation. I have a two-pronged question. First, to all the panelists. So we talk about agri-food system transformation, right? So what comes after we achieve our goal? So do you have any imagination the day after we achieve agri-food system and how it would look like? My second question is to our German colleagues. We talk a lot about sustainability and inclusiveness, etc., and also a lot of focus on organic agriculture and climate mitigation and climate change. But I believe access to good quality, affordable food is very important. Do you think in Germany, the overemphasis on climate sacrifice the affordability of food, especially for poor and working class people who want affordable food? And I'm reading that increased regulations in Germany and Europe also adding pressure to food prices. What do you think, and how Germany and Europe should tackle this issue? Thank you.
Yeah, perhaps I can take this. So to the first question, what's the end point? I'm very much against, they call this teleological thinking. Yeah, I don't think there is a linear progress with an end point. So I think it will always, we will be asking ourselves these questions forever, right? I don't think it makes sense to think of that as a linear thing with an endpoint. And as we are evolving, new things will happen and conditions will change, and we will have a job for a long time, and I think we'll be able to talk about that for a long time. The second question you raised about costs, right? This is part of what I meant before when I talked about the political economy of food systems transformation. So you have different actors, they have different interests, and they negotiate who carries which part of the burden, which part of the cost. And I couldn't say it's necessarily linked to climate change mitigation policies, but we do have a problem of rising food prices. In Germany, food banks are receiving more, I don't know if you call them customers or people that go there for food. This is also related perhaps to war and conflict, which is also a big issue there. We have a debate now about food poverty, Ernährungsarmut, like sort of the idea that food is there is availability of food, no question about this, but some people don't have access about it. So it will be part of this very difficult conversation to make sure that sort of all the actors are being taken care of and that we balance their diverse needs. And it's absolutely clear that availability of food is part of the conversation, and you can't have policies that make food unaffordable, while at the same time you can't have policies that destroy, the natural resources on which production is based.
Okay, thank you very much. Regarding the time, I think that we have now to close this open audience and come to the end. And Parliamentary State Secretary Nick, she gave us a target this morning in her opening speech. And she has said that every one of us should go home from the Sino-German Agricultural Week with one more spirit, one more thought from the country abroad, from the respective partnering country. And I wanted to ask you in the end, just with a very, very brief statement, just a few sentences to all the panelists, what is your new thought? What did you take home today as really a new spirit, as an impetus from this conference? So, Professor Wang, if you want to start, then we make the round.
Okay, I will make it short. I guess keep your mind open, or keep my mind open, and to talk to people, talk to different people. Yeah.
I can just agree on that behalf. I think it's always good to have an open mind, but also sometimes change perspectives, because sometimes we are so busy with our own issues, with our German perspectives, and to see or to highlight also this topic of food security, which is much, much bigger in China. This is something I always have to keep in mind. And I think on that behalf, venues like this are so helpful to make a change of perspective. And I think this is my lesson I take home from here. Yeah.
好，我也觉得，用一句话就是改革。
And I want to say that reform and opening up, it is reform and opening up that makes what China it is today, and China will continue to make further progress through reform and opening up.
I don't know which position I should take now, but as a German looking at China, I guess I would say what always strikes me is this vast diversity. What a country, how many different systems. Professor Ko-Bing-Shang was talking about all the different types of agricultural systems that we see that kind of exist in parallel. The geography is so varied, the cultures are so varied, the farm sizes are so varied. All of this exists at the same time, and that gives a great experimentation ground to play with different systems, and see how everything works. So I guess my takeaway would be there is no one-size-fits-all strategy in our food system transformation. You have to find localized solutions.
Okay, thank you very much to all the panelists. I think that was a very nice wrap-up, and it gave us also a very good ground for our future cooperation, because as you said, it is much about dialogue, it's much about talking to each other, listening to each other, with all the relevant questions that we covered today, from nutritional patterns of ecological farming, food inclusiveness also as a very important aspect. Thank you to this wonderful panel. Thank you particularly also to Michaela, who jumped in spontaneously this evening, and to my co-moderator, Professor Zhu. And we'll now have, I think, a small break and then have the dinner all together. And there's also a last call from the DCZ to please fill out the questionnaires that you find on your tables. And there should be also a QR code on the screen later on. Please scan it and fill out the questionnaire. So thank you very much to the audience.